Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so today we're looking at two massive, seemingly totally unconnected forces that are fundamentally shaping humanity's future: the race to build artificial brains and the global push to save our physical planet. It's a really fascinating duality of digital intelligence and environmental survival, and we have some incredible data to get through today. Here is our roadmap for today. First, predicting the AGI timeline. Second, defining general intelligence. Third, tracking AI's rapid growth. Fourth, preparing for climate change. And finally, inside the climate box. Let's get started. Part 1, predicting the AGI timeline. Let's dive right into the numbers. So we're looking at a huge meta-analysis here. Over 9,800 predictions regarding exactly when artificial general intelligence, or AGI, might actually arrive. And this isn't just guesswork, right? It's compiled from surveys of AI researchers, industry leaders, and highly active prediction markets. Now, notice this massive 20-year divide. Conservative researchers and scientists, looking strictly at formal milestones, point to a median arrival year of 2052. But if you look at the tech entrepreneurs actively building the tools and the prediction markets where real money is on the line, that timeline shrinks aggressively down to 2032. Now, when you zoom in on the high-profile individuals actually driving this industry, that timeline accelerates even more dramatically. Elon Musk has aggressively predicted AGI could be here by 2026. Demis Hassabis, the founder of DeepMind, takes a slightly more cautious approach, but he still gives it a 50% chance of hitting by the end of the decade in 2030. Meanwhile, OpenAI's Sam Altman is aiming for 2035. So the key takeaway here: the people with the deepest, most inside view of this tech believe this paradigm shift isn't a century away. It could literally be within the next decade. Moving on to part 2, defining general intelligence. Let's make sure we have our terminology straight. Look, before we get too caught up in debating specific dates, we really need to nail down what these experts are actually forecasting, because these terms get tangled up so easily in popular media. The source data clearly distinguishes 3 critical milestones. First up is AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence, which basically matches human cognitive abilities across all tasks. It's as smart and adaptable as an average human. Next is the singularity. And keep in mind, this isn't a level of intelligence, it's an event. It's a point of rapid, runaway, exponential machine growth. And finally, that runaway growth leads to superintelligence, an intellect that vastly surpasses the brightest human minds in every conceivable domain. So, why do experts think this massive leap from narrow AI all the way to superintelligence is basically inevitable? Well, think about it. Human intelligence is pretty much fixed. We are limited by biology and the physical size of our skulls. Machine intelligence, however, just continuously expands. It scales exponentially through better computational processing power, ever-growing oceans of training data, and sharper algorithms. Which brings us to part 3, tracking AI's rapid growth. Let's talk about the sheer velocity of this technology. Okay, so what is actually at stake here for society? The economic impact is absolutely huge. Right now, white-collar workers make up roughly 45 to 48% of the global workforce. According to the data, if an AGI system successfully automates economically valuable cognitive tasks, that specific demographic could plummet to just 10%. We are talking about a fundamental restructuring of the global labor market, where machines just become exponentially more efficient at desk jobs than we are.
But, it's not just a straight, unobstructed path to get there. Sure, raw compute power, the engine driving these models, is exploding by 4 to 5 times a year. But researchers are hitting some serious hurdles. They point to issues like data poisoning, where bad data completely corrupts a system, and something called degenerative AI. This is what happens when models train on too much AI-generated synthetic data, causing them to basically digitally inbreed and degrade over time. These obstacles could easily throttle our path to an autonomous digital future.
But here's the thought. While billions of dollars are spent and the world's brightest minds debate when digital machines will outsmart us, we have to ask a parallel question. How are we actually preparing the next generation for the physical, environmental reality they will inevitably inherit? That brings us to part 4, preparing for climate change, a sweeping global push. This introduces a massive initiative designed to impartially educate students on global climate shifts. It's an entirely different kind of intelligence building. The core philosophy here is pretty straightforward. Our collective global consumption of fossil fuels creates a carbon footprint that actively alters the planet. You simply cannot adapt to a changing system if you don't understand the mechanics of it, making early scientific education and practical tools an absolutely essential survival toolkit. To tackle this head-on, the United Nations Development Program, along with several global partners, created a really tangible solution called the Climate Box. It's a comprehensive interactive learning toolkit specifically aimed at primary and secondary school students. It takes what is honestly an overwhelmingly complex global threat and translates it into an engaging, highly accessible classroom resource. Let's open it up in Part 5, Inside the Climate Box. How exactly are we equipping our youth? You really have to wonder, how do you teach a global crisis to a child without just terrifying them? Well, the answer is serious collaboration. Developed with leading climatologists, geographers, biologists, and experienced school teachers, this international toolkit presents up-to-date scientific facts in a very accessible format. It perfectly bridges the gap between high-level UN climate data and the day-to-day reality of a typical school curriculum. The physical box itself is completely packed with varied, multi-channel learning tools. It doesn't just rely on one dry method of teaching. It includes a deep-dive illustrated textbook, engaging quiz game cards to test retention, a predictive wall map showing the global effects we might actually see by the end of the 21st century, and highly actionable posters outlining how students can adapt to changes and reduce their own carbon footprints. And the curriculum guides students in such a logical, chronological way. First, they explore the past, learning paleoclimatology by discovering how tree rings and mollusk shells reveal ancient climate patterns. Next, they analyze the present, understanding how current weather shifts directly impact vital resources like water and agriculture. And finally, they look to the future, learning actionable, individual steps to mitigate further damage. This structured flow ensures they aren't just blindly memorizing facts, they are learning how to actively respond. The toolkit definitely doesn't pull any punches about the stakes, prominently featuring these really powerful words from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. It frames climate awareness not just as a standard science lesson, but as a defining historical and civic priority for the youth engaging with the material. And that leaves us with a pretty profound realization. Between the exponential algorithms currently predicting our cognitive replacements and the educational toolkits actively preparing our youth for a warming planet, the landscape of human existence is shifting fast. So the question I want to leave you with today is this: how will you actively navigate our dual reality future? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.